Hello and welcome back to Lyre. We will be continuing where we left off, which is when you're looking for the bath. So yeah, let's continue. I step out into the hallway. The walls are lined with stone pillars, and there's an occasional portrait, statue, or torch. As I near the end of the hall, it turns into a sort of balcony. The pillars are separated by large, arched windows. I get a nice view of the fjords from here. The light from outside pours into the hall and lights up the bricks with a glow. I reach the end of the hallway, and there it is. A large door painted white, the light shining off of it, making a contrast against the walls. I approach it and grab onto the handle. There's some resistance as I pull on the door. I push on it, and it finally budges. I swing the door open, and I'm met with a wonderful smell. The room is white and reflective, giving off a hazy glow. My eyes are instantly drawn to a large, empty pool in the center of the room with a towering fountain in the center. The faucet is shaped like a weird, spiraled antler and made of what looks like gold. I stride into the room, my footsteps echoing off the walls. Even with the sound of my shoes padding against the ground, the room is peacefully quiet. To my right are 3 tall windows. Their glass is stained blue, green, and yellow. The green one is in the middle and slightly taller than the other 2. Figures. I whisper to myself under my breath. It reverberates around the room regardless. On my left, there's another door. There are some carved benches against the walls and some towels folded and stacked next to a laundry chute. I set the clothes that I plan on changing into next to the towels. I turn and look at the pool, circling the edges, examining the fountain, trying to figure it out. After another quick scan of the room, I see some levers up against the wall on the corner. Walking up to them, I see that they have different colored handles, and I figure this is the contraption to get the water flowing. One of the handles says water, another says mineral water, one says salt. Each handle has a different type of bath water, and some have soaps labeled on them. I don't really know which to choose, so I decide to have some fun and just pull all of the levers. There's a rumbling in the walls that travels through the floors and pipes, snaking around under my feet. Water starts to funnel out of the prongs in the antlers, arching through the air and pulling into the bowl in the center. The water is different colors, probably due to being mixed with so many kinds of soaps and other bath products. It fills up the bowl in the center quickly, and soon a pillar of water starts to flow over the edge of the rim, splashing at the bottom of the pool. After a while, the water is filled up to an adequate height and starts to drain out the sides so it doesn't overflow. It's very enchanting watching the light from the colored windows shine into the pale room and bounce off into the multicolored pool, sending refractions of colored light bouncing off the walls. I look up and see a large owl statue shelved into the wall, its wings spread out, fanning across the ceiling. I walk over to the bench next to the laundry chute and start to strip. Once my dirty clothes are off, I lay them in a pile on the bench and walk over to the large tub, my bare feet cold on the floor. The thick floral scent that I was hit with when I first entered the bathing room has gotten stronger now that the tub is being churned with different oils and soaps. Large bubbles are forming on the surface, and they're all sorts of beautiful colors. I sit near the edge and slowly lower my foot past the bubbles and into the water. At first, the water feels cold, but as my nerves register the feeling, I feel a warm sensation around my foot. I ease myself into the water, and a warm feeling envelops my body as I lean against the wall of the pool with my back to the entrance. The water is thick with fragrance and feels amazing on my skin. I dunk my head under the water, closing my eyes as I quickly wet my hair. I bring my head back out of the water feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. Although Lyle says that I didn't smell, there was no denying that I felt very dirty. I carefully start to rub out my arms and legs as I clean myself. The water washes away my worries, and my mind drifts away from all the crazy things that have happened so far, along with the weird dream I just had. I finish cleaning and lean back against the wall of the pool, closing my eyes to rest for a minute. I only have my eyes closed for about 10 seconds before I hear the door to my left open. Oh god. Lyle steps into the room, sliding through the half-open doorway, and stops in his tracks when he sees me. He shakes his head as if clearing his mind, and then takes a few steps forward, averting his gaze. Didn't know anyone would be here. He walks to the edge of the pool, across from me, and starts to get in. I look like a fool, sitting in the water with a dumbstruck look on my face. I try to keep my eyes on his face, but they fall to the one place I knew they would. I can't help but glance at his manhood as it sits there between his legs in full view. It's quite large and pixelated. I gather my thoughts and respond. I needed a bath. I bring my arms in and slink into the water. Lyle steps into the water and leans back against the wall, with his arms crossed over his chest. His bushy tail floats on the surface behind him, before getting wet and slowly sinking under the water. Yeah. There's an awkward silence in the room as we both just sit there. The red slowly fades from my face over time, as I grow more and more comfortable with the situation. So, how was your morning? He pauses for a moment before answering. It was good. I got plenty of sleep. He pauses again. I have a massive headache, though. How are you feeling? He starts to rub his arms and torso, cleaning his fur. I feel good, I guess. I got a lot more sleep than I thought I would. That's good to hear. He dunks his head under the water and comes up a few seconds later, the fur around his neck completely drenched. He catches me staring at him, and I avert my gaze nonchalantly. I hear him splash around in the water for a minute, and then he speaks up. I hope that wasn't too uncomfortable. What? Of course that was uncomfortable. Here I am enjoying a nice bath alone with my thoughts, and in steps an exposed wolfman. I mean, in any other situation I wouldn't mind, but this certainly took me by surprise. Just a bit. I glance in his direction and see an embarrassed look on his face. Don't worry about it, though. I relax a bit and move my way around the bench. Okay. I watch him scrub the fur around his shoulders and neck, and then splash water on it. He then dunks his head under the water and scrubs his head, his ears flopping around. I just sit there and stare for a bit, then avert my eyes to the surface of the water in front of me, staring at my reflection. The silence goes on for some time, and we sit there for about 3 minutes. Lyle's eyes are closed as he leans back against the edge of the pool. Then, after a while, I hear him snort. Richter? Yeah? You added too much soap. He snickers at this. Sorry, I thought I would have fun with it. I didn't know exactly how to use the levers. You're fine. Next time, only pull the soap lever down a tiny bit. He lifts his paw from the water and pinches his fingers and thumbs together to emphasize how little I should use. Sure, thanks. There's more silence as we sit there listening to the soft noise of the water pooling from the fountain. Oh wait, I forgot to mention. I got a message from the king to let you know that supper will be at 7. Where's supper? Oh, it's in one of the royal dining rooms. I'll escort you there at 15 till. Oh, and don't be intimidated. He's a very kind person. Even if he doesn't look the part. He's a stag, right? Yeah, he is. That's all I really know about him. You don't know his name? No, I know his name, but back home in Earring, everyone refers to him as the Stag King. Not meaning any offense by it, of course. I feel that might have been a rude thing to say about his king. Trust me, no offense was taken. Just don't say anything like that in front of him. I don't even know how he would react. He shakes his head and chuckles. He would probably just laugh it off. Or just not even acknowledge it. Just try not to overanalyze everything that he does. That's something that I definitely have trouble with. Really? It's his son who you should watch your step around. The prince? Yeah, he can be a real pain. He's nothing like his father. Just make sure to get on his good side. I make a mental note not to piss off the prince. Okay, I think I can do that. After all, it's part of my job. Kissing up to the right people. He smirks at this and leans back, staring at the ceiling. My eyes drift around the room, landing on him occasionally. I don't want to be rude, but my curiosity betrays me, and my eyes drift onto him like magnets. Back in Iran, it was a very rare sight to see a wolfman, even with a small population of other species. I had never been so close to one, especially in a situation like this. The way his fur gleams in the light, the way his ears twitch around at every little noise. His large body and intimidating presence. Oh my god. There I go again, getting carried away with my thoughts. This is the last situation I would want to be put in. I managed to compose myself and sit up straight. I watch the fountain flow down, creating ripples on the water as I try to take my mind off of things. After a while, the tense silence breaks as I hear Lyre disturb the water. Well, I've had enough water. I watch him turn around and lift himself from the pool. I get a glimpse of his rear and quickly look down, biting my lips. Looks like a pair of coconuts or something. I get up and walk over to one of the benches, where I see some clothes laid out. He takes a towel and starts to dry himself off. By the end, his fur is really fluffy, and he combs it down with his paws. While I'm watching, his tail swishes back and forth. He turns and his gaze meets mine. I dart my eyes down and hope he didn't see me looking. I hear him stand there frozen, then he continues to dress. I'm still looking down at the water when I hear him walk up to the edge, his feet splashing small puddles that have formed on the ground. He stands there smiling down at me with a loose shirt and trousers on. I guess I'll see you later. He looks around for a second, then gives me a nod. He walks behind me and I hear him go through the door. I sit there for a bit longer, waiting for my obvious erection to go away before getting out. Once I do, I slip a little bit, walking over to the levers. I pull on them a second time and the water shuts off. The water drains and then I hear the pool fill up again. I peer over the edge and see it filling up with fresh water. I guess that's how they clean the pool out of any soap left behind. There's some towels folded up and stacked in a corner. I grab one and start to dry myself off. Once I'm done with that, I throw it down the chute and start putting on my clothes. It's not difficult, but it still hurts a bit due to the soreness of my wound. Once I push the last button into place, I walk over to the bench next to the door and put on my shoes. I then make my way out the bathroom. When I step out, the sun is high in the sky and a few birds fly by the pillars. I look on the ground and see Lyle's wet footprints make a trail down the hall. I shake my head and chuckle to myself, walking over to the edge of the window. Staring out the window gives me a better view of the kingdom. I see some homes scattered about, and if I crane my head in the right direction, I can get a glimpse of the city and the fjord. I gaze a bit longer, then sigh. I can't shake off the thoughts running through my head right now. It feels wrong being so attracted to a man I just met. Not to mention he's my bodyguard. And a wolfman. I mean, it's not unheard of. I shake my head, ashamed of myself. There's just something about him. Sure, he's good looking, but he's different from most people I've met. He seems to have a good head on his shoulders, and he has a kind heart, though he humbly tries his best to hide it. Of course, this is just my first impression of him. There's one more thing that I really like about him, though. He seems genuine. The hours drag by slowly. I spent most of the afternoon after lunch going through scrolls, documents, and letters that were sent with me to deliver to the king and his council. Most of these go to the king, though. I don't think he has a very large council, which is partly why I'm here. Lyle came back to my room sometime after lunch, relieving the guard who took over while he was gone. He peeked in and asked if I needed anything while I was working. I invited him in because I knew that I still wanted to pry some information out of him about what's to come. Sure, I've been in this position for some time, but this is my first time outside of my own kingdom. And they seem to do things differently around here. I also enjoy his company. He's sitting in the same chair he sat in last night, toying around with a dagger. I pick up one of the letters from the small pile and place it in a stack designated for the king's eyes. So, now you deliver the king's mail? He says this with a snarky tone while resting the end of his finger on the tip of the dagger. I sigh, dropping my hand slowly and glancing out the window. Reasoning behind this was to ensure that all of this. I gaze back at him while gesturing to the letters. Got here, but after the rock slide, there have been some missing. The north winds have probably carried them all the way to the golden timber by now. My men gathered up as much of them as they could, though. I raise an eyebrow as I hold up one of the scrolls, which has been smeared with dirt. I know, the trunk was practically smashed to pieces. The lid was bent. Whatever. He stifles a giggle and grins at me. It brings me out of my sour, overworked mood for a fleeting moment. His toothy grin is contagious. I grab some of the letters, bunching them up together and stacking them against the desk. I put away the other scrolls and sit on my workspace for a minute with my hands folded in my lap. I go back and forth from staring out the window to staring at Lyle. His bushy tail sticks out the back of his chair and sweeps the floor, slowing down over time. He sits there for a minute tinkering with his blade before lowering his shoulders and letting out a big, breathy sigh. What? Huh? Why are you staring at me? Is this about earlier? Well, I'm sorry about gracing you with my... What? No! I just wanted to talk more about... I gesture behind me out the door. What to expect. Oh. He shivers, shaking his head a bit. I mean, like I said, you really don't need to prepare for much. It's just dinner. I know, I just want to make a good first impression. If I screw this up, I won't be taken seriously in my profession ever again. Your profession? You won't be taken seriously at the dining table ever again. He says this with a hint of sarcasm. However, if it's anything like the dinner we had last night, I'm sure you'll do fine. Personally, I think you're over-exaggerating. Maybe I am. In any other place, this would be reasonable, but... Does he tend to take these things seriously? He thinks for a moment, his nose twitching. No, not really. I mean, he does. He just takes a more relaxed approach. That sounds like it's going to make my job a lot easier. I'll take your word for it. The rest of the day passes by without any trouble. I started to feel really tired at one point. I laid in bed to rest my head for a bit and almost fell asleep. Lyle came in and nudged me back into reality. He told me that we should leave soon, so I put on my shirt. The soap from my bath did wonders to my hair, giving it a really nice shine. It also feels nice too. I pick up the letters and scrolls off the desk and make my way to the door. I look down the hall and see Lyle with his arms resting on the sill of the window. He's watching the sun go down behind the mountains, and his figure is engulfed in warm light. His tail is swaying slowly behind him, and his eyes are glazed with evening light. When I get closer, he turns his head and smiles. Look at the sunset. Isn't it gorgeous? I stand next to him and look out the window. The sun eclipses behind the mountains as its warm light cascades over the landscape. The waters of the fjord are glistening with bright pink and orange hues. A soft wind blows through the hall and twists around the pillars. Yes, it's very beautiful. You're probably not used to views like this. Back home, there aren't so many mountains, but the way the sun shimmers on the waters off the coast of Erin is very enchanting. I've never been that far west. Really? Yes, I spent all my life on this side of the continent. I think that it would be very nice to go explore the rest of Tigran. I think I already know the answer, but I ask anyway. Why don't you? He lowers his head with a bittersweet smile. Unless this kingdom sprouts legs and walks across the entirety of Tigran, I can't. I have given my life and heart to the king and his kingdom. I'll be doing this for the rest of my life. He gestures out across the landscape. That sounds sad. It's not all bad. We begin walking down the hall at a slow pace. I think you would like Erin. It's a beautiful place with a perfect climate and rolling hills. I'm more interested in stranger places. Like the Shadow Gulch and the Parched Labyrinth. I just want to go somewhere new. Somewhere completely different from Lyre. We walk in silence a bit longer. Lyle is walking with his paws behind his back and his chin high. He keeps opening his mouth as if he's about to say something, only to close it. Finally, he speaks. I'm sorry about earlier. What? Snapping at you like that. It's my fault anyway. I could sense you were uncomfortable the whole time, but I thought that I could make things less uncomfortable if I just played it casual. I'm usually the only one in there during that time of the day. Is this about the bathroom? Yes. I reach over and place my hand on his back. It's fine. He grimaces, then puts on a shy grin. You're right, I'm sorry. I just tend to overthink these things. I didn't know you were so shy about your body. My jest gets to him as I watch his mouth curl like he's trying to stop a smile. I'm not, I just... He sighs and waves his paw dismissively. I let out a slight chuckle. Haha. What? You have a cute laugh. I can feel my face flush red. Please don't say that. We laugh together for a moment, then carry on the rest of our walk in silence. Delving far into the interior of the castle, we twist and turn through the halls. The torches lining the hallway are lit with a glowing blue fire. As we make our way deeper and deeper into the castle, we pass framed paintings of noble-looking people. I see a badger dressed in colorful clothing with a large ruff around his neck. A little ways down, I see a portrait of a fox clad in white and purple silk dresses and a shawl. After a while, we come across a large pair of double doors. Well, here we are. Are you ready? I swallow the lump in my throat and nod, straightening out my clothes. Lyle walks up to one of the large doors and raps at it. For a moment, there's only the sound of the door knocker echoing down the empty halls. Then there's a voice from the other side. Come in. Lyle glances in my direction and opens the door. The door swings open, and a warm room meets my eyes. There is a large dining table in the center with 3 chairs. I look to my left and see the other chairs have been stacked up against the wall. Cabinets and chests line this wall underneath the curtained windows. On the far right wall, there's a mirror and some wine. Straight ahead of me is a large painting of a table full of food and butchered meats. It looks like a royal pantry. A large chandelier hangs from the ceiling right above the table, illuminating the room with an orange glow from the candles. Despite all of this, the room does look fairly simple. My eyes take in most of this within a second, but after that, I'm immediately drawn to the figures in the room who stand to greet me. There, sitting in the chair to the left of the room, is a large stag. The king. His antlers are tall and elegant, framed by a crown with the crest of Tigran, and the shimmering green gem at the top signifying Lyre's territory. He's clad in a large fur coat, with green and purples. He's almost as big as Lyle, I look to the right side of the table and see another deer. This must be the prince. He's not nearly as tall as his father, almost coming up to my height. The antlers on his head are small prongs. He's wearing similar colored clothing with a much more noble look to it. He has a cape draped over his shoulder, pinned down with a crest of tigrin. His demeanor is dismissive, and he barely makes eye contact with me. I turn my gaze back to the king and lower myself to one knee, bowing my head. King Raynor, it is an honor to finally be in your presence. He has a stern look on his face, but there is a warmth to his voice. It is good to see that you have recovered, Lord Richter. I am so terribly sorry about what happened to you on your journey here. Yes, it was an unfortunate event. I am very grateful for the welcoming hospitality that you and your staff has shown me. He gives me an understanding nod and gestures towards the prince. This is my son, Prince Andrius. I bow in his direction. It is a pleasure to meet you, Your Highness. He grimaces for a moment, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, then straightens up. Likewise. There is a short moment of silence, which is broken by Raynor. I take it my captain has been helpful. He gestures towards Lyre, who is standing in the doorway. Lyre shrugs his shoulders and smiles. Very helpful, yes. That's very good to hear. I knew that Captain Reed would do well with this task. Even though I'm looking in the king's direction, I can still hear Lyle's tail wagging furiously. Please, take a seat. It takes a moment for my legs to work again, and I walk around the table, passing behind Andrius. As I'm walking around the table, I hear the door close and realize that Lyre has left. We take our seats, and I set the box of scrolls and letters on the floor next to my seat. There is a moment of silence before Raynor speaks up. I hope that your accommodations are adequate. He rests his hands on the table, leaning back in his chair. They are more than adequate, Your Majesty. He draws back with a frown on his face. Please, you can refer to me as Raynor. I would like to dispense with the formalities when not in public. If it pleases you. Lyre wasn't kidding. This is the most casual king I have ever met. Then again, I've only ever met one. Our queen is a no-nonsense type. What is that? He nods towards the box on the floor next to my seat. Oh, yes. I bend down to pick up the small box and place it on the table. These are some important documents that were sent with me to deliver to you. Financial reports, some settlements, news about other territories, and other letters of intelligence. I figured that I should give these to you while I had the audience. He motions with his hand for me to slide the box his way. I push the box in his direction, and he examines the documents. Is this everything? I fold my hands together. This is all that we could salvage after the crash. I have a list of the missing documents, and I'll have copies delivered. He opens one of the letters and skims over it before placing it on the top of the small pile in the box. I thank you for bringing these to me. I shall go through these later, and share these documents with the rest of my court, so that they can evaluate them. He pushes the box off to his right and places his hand on the table. There's a half a minute of silence before Andrius lightly slaps his hand on the table in resignation. So, that's it? I glance at a piece of paper and that's all you have to say? The mood in the room instantly changes, and for a moment, I'm too shocked to even sink into my chair. As I said, I will look at these documents later. He turns to me, drumming his fingers on the table. I had hoped to delay this meeting until Lord Kadaj arrived, but we have a kingdom to rule. Raynor has a stern look on his face as he stares his son down from across the table. I have a kingdom to rule. And 2 other kingdoms to work with. I see it as best to wait until both parties are here before discussing such matters. Andrius grits his teeth for a moment, then reluctantly concedes. Of course, father. I only have our kingdom's best interest at heart. Raynor leans back in his chair with a look of content on his face. Since we are still waiting on our ambassador from Dries, I assume that we could use this time for introductions. He looks at me with a reassuring smirk. I'm still recovering from the random burst of tense energy, so I just nod in agreement. After a few minutes, the door swings open. 3 servants walk in pushing small carts with food placed on them. They begin to move all the food onto the table. There's a large roasted turkey sitting in the center of the table, surrounded by greens and potatoes. They smell delicious, and I can clearly see the steam coming off of them. Grapes of rich purple colors are placed on a plate near the center, and there are bowls of different dressings. A large bowl with a salad is placed on the table. The vegetables are layered perfectly, and it's drizzled in oils and vinegar. There's also a plate of crisp bread rolls. The smell reminds me of the bakeries back home. Finally, a large pot of soup is set next to the table on a rolling cart. The servants start to make our plates. I watch them take a little bit of everything and place it on mine. One of the servers walks forward with a pitcher of wine and fills my cup. After a while, everyone has been served their food. My plate is filled with just about everything. It's a lot of food, and I don't know if I'll be able to eat it all, but I just figure I'll eat as much as I can. Raynor's plate has a big steamed potato and a salad bowl with grapes onto the side. Andreas opted for a single bowl of soup. We eat for a bit before Raynor speaks up. So, how are things in Erin? I haven't been to the kingdom of Erin in about 10 years. I take a moment to finish chewing the piece of turkey in my mouth. I'm afraid you haven't missed out on much. Erin hasn't changed, and I don't think it will change for a while. The climate is as favorable as ever, and our citizens continue to thrive. I fear that I'm rambling, but when I make eye contact, I see that he's giving me his full attention and seems interested in the topic. Meanwhile, the prince sits across the table from me, picking away at his soup with a look of uninterest on his face. I'm told that Erin has managed to supply both Dries and Lyre with an abundance of food. We are fortunate to have such fertile farming lands and very glad to be able to support our neighboring kingdoms, especially with the winter drawing near. Smooth. Raynor takes a sip of the wine and leans back in his chair. I agree on that matter. It is very important that we work together. The people of Lyre know better than anyone how harsh winter can be. I'm sure that you do. He gives a slight smile and leans forward, taking a bit from his salad. And we have your people to thank for this food. I nod in agreement, tipping my wine glass in his direction. We continue to eat while having conversations about our common interests. He seems to be very interested in me, which is new because I've never thought I was that interesting. I guess being in this castle all the time would make him want to live vicariously through others. That's a stretch, though. I might be overanalyzing. The prince has been quiet for most of the time, interjecting with his thoughts occasionally. So, where exactly did you come from, and how did someone like you achieve nobility? He asks this with a look of disdain. I'm starting to dislike him more and more as the night goes on. I lower my glass after taking a drink and pause to swallow. Your Highness, I'm afraid that it's not a very interesting story. He doesn't look satisfied with that answer. Lyle told me to get on his good side, but I don't think he has one. He seems to be bitter all around. I suppose. He traces his finger around the rim of the wine glass while resting his chin on his fist. I just worked hard and proved myself useful. Speaking of hard work, I have some important news for you, Lord Richter. I am choosing to appoint you as a royal financial advisor, along with your other duties. Do you think that you will be up to the challenge? I fold my hands and respond calmly. I have experience with this sort of work back home. It shouldn't prove to be a challenge at all. He looks to be very pleased to hear this. That is excellent news. The winter solstice ball will be held a month from now, and we'll need to figure out the expenses. It should be quite exciting for you, considering you've never been to one. The Winter Solstice Ball? Yes, here in Lyre, it is one of our most famous celebrations. We celebrate the solstice as a reminder of the death and rebirth of our sun. We use this time to cherish our loved ones. That sounds really nice. I'll make sure that everything is in order. Very good. We have past records on hand that you can refer to. I'll have them sent to your apartment in the morning. Our meals go into the night, and soon everyone is finished eating. I can feel a cold draft from the windows behind me and crickets chirping. I didn't eat everything on my plate, but I still feel full. Raynar gets up from his seat and steps forward, holding out a hand. I'm taken aback by this gesture, but reach forward. He takes my hand in both of his and shakes it up and down once with a firm grip. It was a pleasure to meet you, Lord Richter. I do hope that you enjoy your stay here, however long it may be. Thank you, Raynar. I gather myself and look towards the prince, who is standing across the table. I give a bow in his direction. It was an honor to meet you, your highness. He gives me a slight smile. However, I don't feel that it's authentic. You're too kind. It was nice meeting you too. One of the servers opens the door and Lyle walks into the room. I wish the both of you a good night. I give a bow in both of their directions and make my way to the door. Lyle stands near the doorway, and as I make my way over, he gives me a wink with a soft smile. We walk through the doorway, and I spot Raynar giving Andreas a despondent look before the door is closed. I assume everything went well? He places his paw on my shoulder with a reassuring smile. Well, I wouldn't say that it went bad. You're looking at the new financial advisor. That's good? I'm about to respond when I spot a painting of Raynar and Andreas. Raynar is looking off in the distance with a solemn look on his face, while Andreas confidently glares forward. I'd say the artist captured them perfectly. I see it as a good opportunity, and I don't think it should be too hard. Okay, but how did it go? Dinner with a king? I don't really know how to feel about it. He's certainly a nice person. I can imagine that he's a good king. He's got an understanding head on his shoulders. I agree, he is a great king. He has wisdom and kindness unparalleled with others. The prince, on the other hand... Lyle rolls his eyes at the mention of the prince. He's not the most pleasant person to be around. And he surely doesn't treat me with any respect. Really? We've moved over to one of the windows. He rests his paws on the sill, and one of his ears twitches slightly. I can feel the cool night breeze blowing through my hair and on my face. I think he's called me by my name once. What does he call you? He sighs, tapping his paws on the brick. Wolf, dog, and hound, just to name a few. Well, that makes him ignorant. You're only one of those things. Yep, 100% pure Lyrian wolfman right here. He bangs his fist on his chest, clattering the metal plate. I laugh, and he chuckles to himself timidly. But I don't think he'll be a problem. Aside from being annoying. I'll steer clear of him either way. We continue to walk, with Lyle in front leading me through the maze of corridors. I watch the tip of his tail brush the floor under his cape. We descend a flight of stairs, and our walk begins to slow. I'm glad that we can enjoy each other's company. He fiddles with one of the gloves, pulling the forchettes off of his fingers, then pulling the glove back down on his paw by the trank. It gets very lonely in this castle. It's hard to have friends when you're the captain of the Royal Guard. Things are nice, but I barely have any time to meet new people or go places. He pauses, letting the words hang in the air. I'm sorry if this is coming off a bit odd, considering I met you only yesterday, but I'm looking forward to working with you, Richter. We arrive at the door to my room, and he stands there waiting for me to say something. I feel the same way. I've only known you for 2 days, and I already think I know you better than anyone back home. Really? Yeah. Back in Erin, people only want things from you, and if you don't have what they want, then they don't give you the light of day. You're the first person who I feel wants to actually be my friend, and isn't just trying to use me. I open the door to my room and step inside. Good night, Lyle. He looks at me with a soft smile, his eyes reflecting the little light that there is in the darkness. I can hear his tail beating against his cape as it wags back and forth. Good night, Richter. He closes the door, and I can hear his heavy footfalls make their way down the hall. I take off my jacket and walk over to my bed, falling onto the mattress. I feel exhausted after everything that's happened today. Everything fades out around me as I drift into a deep sleep. It'll be the death of you. Betrayal never comes from enemies, but from those closest to your heart. And it always starts with trust. And I'm gonna leave it there for today. So, I wonder who that voice is. Because it's very, it's either being very antagonistic and trying to cause trouble, like the voice from, Far Beyond the World, or it's someone who is responsible for making sure that that Richter lived, because it kind of seems like there's something fishy going on. And given the synopsis of the story, like somebody pointed out in the comments, these people are very likely lying to Richter about what's going on, and they're probably going to be using him, playing him like a fiddle or a liar. And so I'm guessing that there's going to be something like that happening, where it's going to turn out that Lyle was maybe using the main character, but maybe not like in a malicious way, maybe just in a way that his king told him that, he had to do. I'm hoping, because that's gonna suck if this guy, like, turns out to be not exactly evil, but, like, not very trustworthy. I mean, his name is a play on words with, like, lie. But yeah, anyways, what do you guys think? Are you liking the story so far? I see a few people that commented that actually like it, and that's good, because I'm gonna continue the story. So, yeah. Anyways, thank you all for watching / listening. If you would like to play Lyre yourself, there will be a link down in the description. If you would like to support, the project or the story, there will also be a link down for our Patreon. And if you would like to follow the creator, there will be a link down for their Twitter. And I guess that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye. Goofy wolf.